if you'd like your child to get protected.
अगर मूड हो मुस्तनद और मायारी देसी खाने का तो आजमाएं लिंकन रोड पर देसी रेस्टोरेंट। दिन का आगाज देसी नाश्ते के साथ हलवा पूरी, चने, निहारी, पाए, पराठा और आमलेट हर रोज सुबह 7 बजे से दिन 1 बजे तक। एक मजेदार और स्वादिष्ट लंच के लिए कबाब, सैंडविच, तंदूरी डिशेस, बल्ती डिशेस, बिरयानी और बहुत कुछ। दिन 1 बजे से शाम 5 बजे तक हमारी खास डिशेस, देसी तवा या हमारी ताज़ा हांडी, 1 kg बेबी चिकन, लैम्प का गोश्त हड्डी के साथ। ऑर्डर पर तैयार कराएं। ईट इनसाइड, टेक वे के लिए फ्री डिलीवरी। पूरा मेन्यू देखने के लिए और ऑनलाइन ऑर्डर करने के लिए हमारी वेबसाइट पे जाएं desirestaurant.co.uk। 60 नशिस्तों की गुंजाइश के साथ और एक प्राइवेट फंक्शन रूम, कैटरिंग सर्विस भी दस्तयाब। डोंट फॉरगेट देसी रेस्टोरेंट, 298 लिंकन रोड, पीटरब्रो, PE1 2ND। कॉन्टैक्ट नंबर 555795।
कोई रत्तियां कमीज़ानी लमाना मारे मामा मिठिया में चीज़ानी।
मेरा नाम मुकद्दस है और कोर्ट मेरा घर है और ये मेरे लिए किसी जन्नत से कम नहीं। हमारे भी कुछ ख्वाब हैं जिनकी ताबीर को हमें पाना है।
आइए इन बच्चों के ताबनाक मुस्तकबिल के लिए अपना हिस्सा डालिए। अपनी ज़कात, सदकात, खैरात और इमदाद कोर्ट को दीजिए।
UK नंबर 0300 123 774। वेबसाइट court.org.uk।
Broadcasting 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. This is Salaam Radio.
Good evening, everybody. This is Sukhi Wahiwala, your host this evening on your favourite show. You know which one it is. It's the Empower Hour, every single Tuesday. Do you know, I'm really, really blessed to have another tremendously humbling individual for our guest this evening. But before I get to any kind of introductions, I'm just going to share with yourself, you know the drill, the inspired tribe who follow us around and specifically are my clients and friends and people who believe in what we're up to. Please do interact with us as you always do every single week. It's the Salaam Radio .co.uk app, so get involved in watching and listening, live. Listen to us on FM, you know what the drill is, 106.2 FM, and that's obviously in the Peterborough local area. And if you would like to get involved with this with reference to communicating this evening with our guest, our amazing guest, by the way, then please, you know what you can easily get in touch with via WhatsApp, which is 07745 278 978. Now, if you're the type of person who's really, really inspired by YouTube and Facebook and stuff of that sort of nature, we have all of our live streaming now. Hey, everybody. And this is basically Salaam Radio on Facebook as well as Salaam Radio on YouTube. And you can watch them both live as well. Do please interact. Do please share. Send this with other friends if you can. So, I was just looking at some research the other day and I could not believe that this is our 48th show, our 48th episode of Empower Hour with myself, Sukhi Wahiwala. Now, I really, really want to thank all of the Inspired Tribe and people who listen to me and our guests, and we sincerely hope that we're bringing something fresh and something new to your ears that actually helps you move forward in life, to empower you forward in life. So thank you once again on behalf of the whole Salaam Radio team and myself and every one of my guests, Amgola, who really does a fantastic part within bringing our teams together. Thank you very much. We are in episode 48 today. Now, I'm going to introduce our guest now. Our guest this evening. Wow. If you're on my WhatsApp and you've had the biog, you will be astounded at the achievements this young lady has created and achieved. Her name is Dr. Seshni Moodliar. She has been in the medical field. She has been in the psychiatrist field. She has assisted with being an author, I think 3 times over. Her books are utilized as the benchmark and go-to places within all of the psychiatrist training and education as well. They're here, we'll talk about them a bit later. She is a truly inspiring and amazingly humble individual. Every time we speak, she's just got this gift about her that actually all she wants to do is help everybody in front of her. And she's not new to radio. She's regularly on radio as always. But before anything else, let's introduce our amazing guest, Dr. Seshni, this evening. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, Suki Wahiwala, for having me on your show and for that lovely introduction as well.
Truly, truly welcome and well deserved.
Well, I'm really humbled to actually be sitting in your studio because you've achieved so much, and you're really an inspiration to me and a lot of other people.
God bless you. And I really do feel very humbled about that. And thank you very much. And as the audience has just felt again, immediately, this warmth and this band of love that just comes emanating from this young lady straight away. Do you know, I'd like to get straight to it if I can. You will not believe, Seshni, how quickly and how fast we go through all of our time. It just disappears like that. This is amazing. Part 1 is all about you. You know how the drill is. So our question to yourself is, Seshni, just give us a little bit of a conversation. Now, from my understanding, you were born in Durban and in South Africa. Is that correct?
Yes, so I was born in Durban in South Africa, and I feel really privileged to have actually grown up in the Rainbow Nation. As you know, South Africa is a cosmopolitan city with different racial groups, and I grew up in the apartheid era.
Right, so we'll get nitty-gritty with it, with the apartheid scenario. Wow, this is very inspiring.
Yes, so I was Asian born, and so my grandfather and 4 generations back of Indians had come from India and Sri Lanka, and so south part of India and also Gujarat from my mom's side.
From your mom's side, wow.
Yes, so so they traveled to South Africa as sugarcane labourers. And
as many did in that era, right?
Yes, they did, and they paved the way for us to have been fortunate to live in South Africa. So I grew up in a spice shop. My dad had a spice business. We still have that in South Africa.
Wow, what
called,
a gift.
Yes, R.A. Moodliar's Spices, which is run by my twin sister. She's a teacher, but she took over the family business.
So we're gonna touch on the fact that you're one of your siblings. But just before I move on to the fact that you're a twin, amazing feeling.
Yeah.
One thing I want to clarify here is that you're kind of 4 generations. Your great-grandfather was taken and moved into, or took that journey into South Africa.
Yes.
So it's not very recent. This is like way, way back, right?
Yes, I think South Africa celebrated 150 years a few years ago of Indians being in South Africa. So that came from India. So
it's correct to say that probably your great-great-grandfather was very much probably in that very first journey.
Yes.
Wow, this is truly amazing. It reminds me of something very similar of a conversation that I had when I arrived in Fiji about 8 or 10 years ago. I can't remember exactly the year, and it was unbelievable. The Indian residency had been there for nearly 7 generations. It's very similar to what you've had in South Africa and Durban, and everybody was speaking Hindi. Urdu Hindi without me even realizing this, and it was again that same sugarcane plantation flow.
Yes.
So
I mean, what you described is very similar to Durban. So, if anyone knows about Durban in South Africa, so Durban is where, it's famous for its cricket. A lot of people watch cricket, so you would have heard about Durban, so that's where the Indians created like a little India, basically, in Durban.
Okay. So you could say the South or Leicester of England,
exactly.
the Bradford and the Leeds environments. That's very much the Durban?
Exactly, yeah.
That's something very new for me to hear. So wonderful. Yeah. And so I'm going to touch a little bit about the apartheid in a moment, if you don't mind, if that's okay. We're very open, humble on the Inspired Tribe. We sit here with the Empower Hour. We try our ultimate best to ensure that everybody sort of gets a true and honest opinion of you. So going back to you and your siblings, now you are an unidentical twin with your sister.
Yes, correct.
And you're one of 4, is that right?
Yes. So I've got 2 older sisters, Darishna, Tamara, and Vilashni.
Hi.
And also my twin sister, Sanusha. Wow. And my dad's late, but my mom's still alive. She's in South Africa with my sisters, Premla.
Yeah, God bless.
Yes.
And and basically they're evidently in the business at some stage, yes?
Yes, so we've all grew up in the spice shop. So we were like the spice girls, as you would say.
I like that one. That's amazing.
Or the curry girls. So I grew up in a spice shop, and I actually didn't realize it until later in life how fortunate that experience was.
Yep,
it was such a rich experience growing up in a business. I don't know if you can relate to growing up in a business. It's so different. I mean, it was a chore for me, you know, thinking we had to sacrifice holidays and weekends because we'd had to be in the business. But I think ultimately it was really such a rich and rewarding experience.
That's so beautiful to hear, because I genuinely believe that as well. In the local area here in Peterborough, our family Wahiwal is quite synonymously connected to a shop just up the road.
Okay.
And an era basically from the 40s right there through to today. This you just touched on something really important. It's just sparked something within me, if I can share.
Yeah.
It really is a blessing.
Yeah.
To be a face-to-face business of some kind. The cultures, the integration you have, and the faith conversations you have. That's wonderful. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, no, it shaped me as a person, and also to where I've come today. I wouldn't have been that person had it not been for the experience that I had, and being surrounded by all those people. I'm so grateful to every single person that I met in the shop. I had conversations with, because, spices is something, every household, food is so important in the Indian culture.
Yes.
Celebration or a death or, any wedding or engagement, there's food, any occasion, there's,
Even daily, yes,
exactly.
absolutely. Yeah.
Food is so important. So we had that experience of sharing that with our customers. So whether they came locally from Durban, or whether they came from Cape Town or Johannesburg or other parts of South Africa, and even worldwide, we had lots of German and foreign customers that would actually come for my dad's mixes.
Wow.
So that was passed on from generation to us.
There was those secret mixes as well, yes?
Exactly.
Some of those, and I think they're still in the trinkets somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
we're very well explained with all experience with that stuff as well.
Yes. So I mean, we had the opportunity of sharing those stories and the celebrations, the highs and lows of people's life, and that's where I got to communicate with a multiracial and a cosmopolitan community, and also that's where my first exposure of the Rainbow Nation of South Africa. You hear about the Rainbow Nation, and I think you don't really realize it, but that's where I saw it.
So where I would like to take this, I mean, that's a really valid point, but just due to time, because I can't believe how fast it goes. Do you know we've been live for 11 minutes already?
Wow.
That's what I mean. That's how fast. It's so beautiful. Our team here, they if they get enough call-ins, we might try to make this into a 90-minute or a 2-hour show. But I think it happens with every one of my amazing guests, like yourself as well, where we always sort of run out a little bit of time, but we manage to cover things comprehensively.
Yeah.
So I just want to lean back a little bit, because you did say that you were a part of a journey and being in Africa as a whole, in South Africa specifically, with the apartheid in context of conversation. I mean, what was it like to live in an era, and we are talking about the late 70s, 80s, and early 90s, so it does make a big effect through that whole sort of era when Nelson Mandela was still in jail, and then he came and took a bit of power. But what was it like growing up in Africa as a whole compared to what it's like today?
Yes, I think it was so different back then, and I think the way you've just put it in context. So in South Africa, for people that don't know, apartheid was very much real. So what it meant was every race was segregated. So we had the Group Areas Act. So where I lived and where I breathed, where I interacted with people was only in the Indian community. So it was just, so I grew up in an area where there were only Indians. The school I went to was only Indians. The shops that I went to, and so that's how it was. So each area would have a different
community.
Race. Yeah, exactly.
So just to clarify that for the audience here, can you imagine being segregated to such an area where only Indians were in one particular place, and the native Africans were in another place, and maybe other ethnicities were in certain areas, and the whites were in a completely different area?
Yes. Yeah.
So that means you woke, played, went to school, and etc., all in this is identified unit area.
Yes, exactly. And people were not allowed in the other areas. So I think as I grew up, things changed. But prior to that, so for example, in buses, there were only certain areas designated to certain racial groups, or certain places that you could enter and you couldn't enter. There's certain, events that you could enter or you couldn't enter. So it was all restricted to the race that you were.
And this is all obviously overt. Our audience may not have experience of understanding this, where it could be covert here in the UK, but it's actually very overt over there, meaning it's external. There's a sign or something saying, do
Yes.
not. Is that correct?
Exactly. So there'd be a sign, so only coloureds or no blacks or only Indians. So it was or only white. So it was different, signs and posts that would designate where a person could be or couldn't be. And I think that's what the Group Areas Act was.
Group Areas Act. Wow.
And apartheid, in essence, that's what it was, where people were discriminated because of the colour of their skin. And obviously my brown skin, being Indian, definitely it did have an impact on me growing up in South Africa. And but that's all I knew growing up in this area.
You just hit it on the nail on the head. It's exactly what I was about to say to yourself. Seshni, do you feel that because that was kind of like at the time the only thing you knew, it didn't come across as a deficit, did it?
No, it didn't. But I think it did and it didn't, I would say, because I mean, obviously growing up in that, if you can imagine how I had grown up, only with Indians, it was part of a culture as well, and a community which obviously I felt supported and loved by. But at the same time, you also feel a sense of being robbed. Of interacting with other people. I mean, if you look at being in England, is so different compared to what I've just described to you, of how I grew up.
You've said it so deeply there, being robbed. What a very crystal clear way of sharing that logic.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Yeah, so I mean, in essence, it was like being robbed of actually interacting with other people, and then also feeling that there was something wrong with me, that I was inferior to maybe the white person or any other races because of the color of my skin, and that also I was not good enough. So it would affect a person's self-esteem and confidence as well.
My goodness.
And also a sense of your identity, of where you actually belong, which, to be honest, no person on this earth should ever be made to feel like that.
No, I agree with you. I'm very, very in that space.
I never really actually, I mean, thinking about it now, I can actually relate to apartheid and what it actually meant and how different my life has turned out because of Nelson Mandela, of course.
Yes, due to Mandela. Now, we're going to touch on a little bit about Nelson Mandela in a moment, because you're one of the students of an era which were the very first year that were expanded in the sense of that school was open to all races. But before I go there a second, you just said that a moment ago you were talking about it was kind of like you never felt robbed of something, but you did as well.
Yeah.
So by feeling as though you didn't belong somewhere, you felt inadequate or not enough, in essence. But you obviously made this work. So what do you feel was different within you?
Well, I think, yes, as I was telling you, as a person, I've always been very positive, and I haven't really, yes, and that's why I'm a psychiatrist. And also because I do feel that that there'll obviously be negative events and difficulties and challenges in our life, but it's about how we look at it, whether it's it's either a glass half full or glass empty. Half empty.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
So I think I always looked at the glass half full. So I've always been really positive, and I think that's probably brought me to where I am today.
Bless you. So it's kind of like that happy feeling, of being,
Yes.
do you know what, let's just make the best of whatever I've got.
Exactly.
Because this is my truth, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've always been grateful, expressed gratitude for whatever I've had in my life. And up till today, I'm still so grateful for every single
Bless you.
event, positive and negative, because each of them have shaped me to where I've come to. So I'm actually grateful for that experience of living in South Africa and in the apartheid era, because I've shown, and other people have shown, and Nelson Mandela, actually, tribute to him, that he's through him we were able to become the people that we are today.
That's a beautiful, beautiful way of putting it. Through him, you became the people that you are today.
Yes.
And it is true. I mean, there are other people who've gone through this. Of course there are. But it's added to you, and that's the mix that I see. It's a bit adding it back to that spice mix, that magical blend that your father created.
Yes.
It's like there's something about Seshni that just is very addictive, if I may say, to the audience. You know, she's got this wonderful beam about yourself, and I'm enjoying sitting in front of you, listening to your lovely words. So thank you very much for that as well. I'm going to now hark back, if I can, to the journey that you had with reference to your studies. Now, you said that, you can talk about the school you went to, etc., but the very first year you went to what we classify as high school, or the principal of the degree level?
Yeah.
Undergrad, that you actually turned around, and that was the very first year, mid-90s, is that right?
Yes.
That actually was integrated with other races as well. For example, the whites with the blacks with by the way, I use this as a reference point, please, all of my audience, because I speak to you all the world at the moment. We have people following us from all over the place. I do not have that desegregation in my brain, but it was actually the language of the time. So I'm just sharing that, if I may share it as well. So, the blacks of the Asians, the Indians, the Chinese individuals, or whichever you want to call it, and then also the white. So that era, what was it like, that very first year? Was it natural?
Yes, so it was a bit of a culture shock, actually, the way you described it, because I was suddenly taken from this group areas act, only knowing Indians, obviously interacting with the other race groups in my dad's business, but then being in a community setting where I have to go to university with a mixture of different people, the Rainbow Nation. So there were blacks, and again, I'm also using it because that's how it was termed in South Africa. So with black South Africans, with coloureds, with Indians, and with whites, and the majority were white. So I was in a class of, for example, over 150 medical students, and of that only about 10 to 15 of us were non-white, and I was the only Indian.
So you were actually a pioneering individual in that particular school.
Exactly. So the first year that I went to, 94, in the University of Free State, Orange Free State.
Okay, Orange Free State.
In Bloemfontein, which was the heart of apartheid era and the heart of the Afrikaner world as such. If you say Orange Free State, people know that that's where there was a lot of predominantly Afrikaner and the influence of apartheid at that
Just for audience, when you mentioned the word Afrikaner, which particular colour of skin would you be referring to? Or is it just the language spoken?
Yes, so Afrikaner is the Afrikaans group of the white South Africans. So in South Africa, we had white South Africans, which were either English-speaking or Afrikaans-speaking.
Got it.
And so in Free State was more Afrikaner white.
So thank you for clearing that for our audience as well. Thank you.
Yes. So it was a bit of a culture shock, because obviously for me it was a shock to be surrounded by different cultures. I never grew up with them, but now I had to share a residence with them.
Wow!
So
yes.
University residents. I had to share lecture rooms with them. Interact with lecturers that were predominantly Afrikaners.
Afrikaans as well. Yeah.
And then so it was a huge culture shock for me, and I think it was a culture shock for them as well. And I didn't really fit in any of the groups, because obviously
being the only one in the year.
Exactly, I tried to fit into each of the groups, and it was always a struggle. But as the years got along, I think, like I said, I was always a positive person, and I didn't let anything get me down. And especially being discriminated as well. There were obviously episodes of being discriminated against, like, which, so if I was in going for a meal, where would I go and sit? Would I sit with the blacks, with the whites, with the coloureds, or, would I just sit on my own?
So that's so deep, because now in context of this, if the audience can imagine this, because obviously we're talking about race here, and about the challenges that we had that were experienced by Seshni there. If you went with and sat with, because obviously the assumption there here is that nobody sat together. So if you went and sat with the Indians, you would be in essence ostracized and judged by the black community, again using referencing for that particular time, and then also the Afrikaner nation, which is the white nation, or the Caucasian nation. and you would have been ostracized by either, wouldn't you?
Yes.
So how did you overcome this?
Well, I think eventually I sort of had friends in all groups, and that's the way I am. Even up till today, I am a very open person. I don't discriminate against race, color, sex,
Absolutely,
creed.
you don't.
And that's why I've become a psychiatrist. So, because I do believe that we all have,
a oneness.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's about
so I was going to
oneness.
say, did you find that it pulled people together? Because obviously if you said you had friends in all groups, and obviously I'm utilising the word groups because that was the era that we're talking about. If you had friends in all groups, did you find that they migrated towards you, or did they still stay separate and you had to keep what we call dodging around, jumping around?
I think I kept dodging around, and eventually, to be honest, my university years, despite this, has been one of the best experiences and years of my life, and I still have contact with lots of my friends.
Bless you.
We ended up, having different groups, but also forming one group where the people that actually wanted to mix and to mix interracially with each other, who were more like open to the different cultures and religions and also to races, that we actually formed our own group.
Now that's the bit.
Yes.
So you actually, in your own little world,
Yes.
influenced that by becoming the key denominator, or common denominator, and communicated with that, and kind of refused to accept the status quo. Is that correct?
Yes. And I'm having said that, to be honest, the Afrikaners, some of them were extremely friendly and extremely welcoming. But then you would get, on the other hand, you'd get people that you knew evidently they were quite racist. Because obviously racism was something that was indoctrinated in people's minds.
It was a norm
Exactly.
that was educated by the same as their name was.
Exactly. And I think Nelson Mandela, again, I get so emotional when I have to talk about him, because I think he was just more than a human being that came on this earth to actually fight for his people. And because of him, he changed. It was one person who decided that he would make a change. And he fought for his people. And because of him, actually, I'm eternally grateful to him, because he paved the way for my life, and which has now influenced other people's lives.
So I can't believe that our first half has gone so quickly, and such an emotional point as well.
Yeah.
So Seshni, I really, really do genuinely connect with what you're trying to say there. How one individual became kind of like a semi-messiah, brought himself to the marketplace, to the audience, and inspired them. In which case you took some of that as well, and became that glue between your friends as well across spring. This is just beautiful to hear. If anybody's listening, I can't believe we're at the end of our first half. Please do tune back into our second half, because we are with Dr. Seshni Moodliar, who has been a true inspiration. We're going to talk in more detail about her psychiatrist work coming up soon. See you shortly.
You're listening to Salaam Radio, and it's now time for Isha Azan. This Azan is sponsored by UK Islamic Mission, serving humanity since 1962.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على
الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته. اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم بك نحيا وبك نموت وإليك المصير. رضينا بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله.
This Azan is sponsored by UK Islamic Mission, serving humanity since 1962.
Peterborough's community radio station, Salaam Radio, 106.2 FM.
Hello everybody, good evening and welcome back to the Salaam Radio show, which is actually on Salaam Radio, but it's the Empower Hour show. This, if you've just tuned in live, this is our 48th episode with myself, Suki Wahiwala, and our guests. And this evening we have Dr. Seshni Moodliar, who is a tremendously inspiring individual, which if you've not heard the first half, please do scrub back and listen to the first half as well. Alternatively, if you're listening live, welcome back. And if not, listen on YouTube Live. The links that will be out in the open shortly. So we have Dr. Seshni, and I'll just call her Seshni for this evening, and she is somebody who's a substantial individual in her field as a psychiatrist. And what we're going to talk about is we went through her journey and being inspired by Nelson Mandela and actually living the apartheid with waking up in the morning. Please do hark back and take time to listen back, but we're going to move forward. Welcome back, Seshni.
Thank you, Suki. It's been really the good first half. It really went so quickly, but I really enjoyed talking about the memories, childhood memories of South Africa.
So it evoked some lovely thoughts and memories for you as well, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Amazing. Yeah. So just if I can assist a little bit more, let's see where we can take this, because I understand obviously your work and your book, which I think if you're watching, please do lift it up if you're there. And this particular book, which is called Pass the CASC, is used as a bit of a reference within your work, and so you can always find this anyway. But before we go into what you're currently working on, and what we'll do is, if you don't mind, I'll just cover something very clear. Is could you help our audience understand what is the difference between psychiatry and psychotherapy?
Yes, so that's a very, very common question, isn't it? So I think a lot of people get confused, and they'll think that psychology and psychiatrists are very much the same.
Yes.
And psychotherapists. So to make a distinction, so psychiatrist is a medical doctor. Wow. So of all of them, psychology is just a person who studied a psychology degree, which is equally important, but they're not medical doctors.
Got it. So they're psychologists in essence.
Yes, psychologists, and then psychotherapists are a different form of a psychologist.
Got it.
Yeah. So a psychiatrist is a person who's been a medical doctor, and they would have specialized like me and done the exams. And in the UK, we do the Royal College of Psychiatrists exams, but it's been done worldwide as well.
So just to be very clear, it's being a medical doctor as well as being a psychiatrist.
A psychiatrist. So we would have done a medical degree like a doctor, and then we would have done the psychiatrist degree and the training, which was up to 6 years.
I was going to say, this is such a lengthy journey.
Yes, and then the psychiatrist sees patients and they're able to prescribe medication, and we are able to do therapy as well.
Truly, now that's the distinction I was trying to look for. Thank you very much for clarifying that for our audience. Obviously, things that I understand, but I love to bring this knowledge to the audience as a whole as well. So it's wonderful to hear that. So the psychiatrist is somebody who can actually medicate as well.
Yes, and psychology is equally important. I must emphasize in our treatment, psychology is very key, and that's first and foremost. Apart from medication, we always advocate psychology and talking therapy. So psychologist is an important part of the team that we work in. We work in a whole team approach. So the psychologist would have had a psychology degree. Some of them might get their doctorate, if they've done their thesis.
Yes, absolutely.
And then they are able to do therapy. So they do different forms of counseling or psychotherapy, as you mentioned as well. Yeah.
Yeah, a very, very good.
So that's a distinction. So they won't be able to give medication, but they are more doing the talking therapeutic aspect.
Got it. So you basically have clarified something that was a lifelong clarity for a lot of our friends.
I think a lot of people, they always,
yes.
and even with me, they get confused as well.
Yeah.
So it's a big distinction, but I think it's equally both important professions, and especially
most definitely, I agree.
Exactly, and we work in a team.
Truly.
So for a person's recovery and well-being, we need psychologists, psychotherapists, nurses and doctors as well.
It's an absolute team, and that's exactly what you just shared there as well. So with reference to understanding this, now you have a connection with Peterborough.
Yes.
From my memory of understanding. So you came here in the noughties, around about 2003, is that right?
Yes. When I first came to England, my husband and I settled close by. I worked in Stamford, which is quite close.
Yeah, Stamford is very close. It's
so I worked between Stamford and Kingsland, and we have family, my husband's family, living in Deeping St. James.
Oh, that's around the corner as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So Peterborough was actually one of the first areas that I knew when I came to the UK in 2003.
Absolute blessing. So a question to yourself, I mean, when you were here, obviously you shifted over to Milton Keynes, which is kind of where the area you're now.
Yeah.
But as a whole, you have had a lot of experience in the local area.
Yeah.
So you've been well connected. And do you find that cities have their own kind of flow of challenges, maybe, or something different?
Yes, I think they do. And I would like to share my experience, because I worked in Peterborough at the Cavell Centre.
Edith Cavell, that's right.
Yes, Edith Cavell. So that was in 2010, 2011, when I was specialising with adults with learning disabilities. So when you do psychiatry, I studied the general postgraduate. I got my exams, the MRC Psych exam with the Royal College, and then I had to specialise. So you either specialise in general adult psychiatry, old age, child and adolescent. So I chose to do learning disability. Yes, so adults with learning disability. So I actually worked in Peterborough in 2010, 2011. And I had such a fantastic experience, and I the staff was so friendly. I mean, compared to a lot of places I've been, Milton Keynes has been a very good experience, but I must say I definitely found people in Peterborough so friendly and such a joy and pleasure to work with.
That's a wonderful thing to share. I think it's a pat on the back for our teams. I
think that's a general feedback that I've got about Peterborough. Like you were saying, each town has a different feel and different challenges.
I will say that everybody who tends to spend time and work here in Peterborough does say nice things about it.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm Peterboring, or Petrobergan, whichever you want to call it.
And actually that was the time I started doing my book. I actually finished my book when I was doing my job in Peterborough.
The first one?
Yes, Past the CASC.
And Past the CASC. And I just want to shoot a little bit about this. So in the book Past the CASC, because I don't want to spend about another minute or so on this, what exactly does it cover? It covers all the kind of disorders, in essence, yeah?
Yes, so psychiatrists do an OSCE exam, like GPs do their OSCE exams. So psychiatrists do a CASC, which is a clinical assessment of skills and competencies. So it's like OSCEs. They get 16 different case scenarios of people with either mental health conditions like psychosis, depression, bipolar, dementia, eating disorders, so the whole range. So in my book, I've actually done it's actually the template for each of those scenarios, how to approach it, the questions they need to ask, and also how to explain the different conditions in layman's terms. Because the thing is, we as psychiatrists, we're dealing with people, we're hearing their life stories, and we need to be able to communicate in an effective way. And this is what it is. It's basically a communication skills book, but it teaches them more than that. It teaches them to be able to be compassionate, show empathy, understanding for people with mental health problems, which are real.
Yes, absolutely.
And also the families as well, how to deal with the families and the teams.
So this is so evident and so relevant today, because we're finding more and more, even in the medical practice, not just in psychiatrists practice, in the medical practice, I've been speaking to some doctors and they're saying, there's not enough training given when it comes to human interaction and communication as communicating with your patient, and actually just learning a little bit more about them as a person, which will give you so much more, so much the bits are missing.
Exactly. Nelson Mandela, there's another quote that sticks in my head. He says, if you talk to a man in a language he understands, it goes to his heart.
Bless you.
But if you speak to him in a language that he doesn't understand, it goes to his brain. So, we do need to speak to people. So it's an English exam, and we're dealing with people in England and their emotions. And so I do train doctors and psychiatrists worldwide, but it's not an exam only done in England. It's done in Hong Kong and Singapore. And so the doctors I teach are from different countries, from Dubai, from Pakistan, from India, Sri Lanka, Hong Kong.
Any sort of individuals who use what we call the British curriculum, so the English curriculum, yes?
So all over the world. So it's used in 40 different countries. It's also been used, so it's been on the Royal College website, they have an article about my book. So which is one of the most popular books being used. So I actually have the privilege of distributing my book and also coaching doctors.
Yeah, this is a beautiful
and psychiatrists,
journey.
Yes.
Wow. On behalf of everybody else, I'd like to pat you on the back and say what an amazing sort of journey that you've had.
Yeah, no, I am passionate about teaching. I'm passionate about people. And I think this is the way we can help people. Because as you said, mental health problems, there's not enough training.
No.
The key thing, we're hearing a lot about mental health conditions. And it's about actually listening to people and then being able to communicate the relevant information.
I was talking earlier on today, and my father's actually had an operation yesterday, and he's still in hospital today. But we were just talking about we met one of my wife Parvinder's very good friends. Her name is Sonia, and she was talking specifically about that philosophy around actually getting to talk to your patients. Exactly what you're saying in your book.
Yes.
Because if you reverse this to, let's say, a child who says, I've got a headache or my tummy hurts, but actually it could be their foot because they don't know how to explain their leg, their foot. The other context is that it's all connected, isn't it? That the mind manifests and creates these ailments as well sometimes. So as you're working on the brain, do you find that by working with them in their psychosis or mindset structure, that it actually affects and resolves in their physicality?
Definitely, and I think you explained it beautifully, because the mind and body is linked. So whatever affects the body affects the mind, and vice versa. So for example, like if you've had a stressful day at work, so that's emotional stress that you've got, and that can manifest as a headache. So that we can see how an emotion, something that's affecting your brain, then gets transformed into a physical symptoms. And it happens a lot. So a lot of, they say disease is dis-ease.
Dis-ease? Oh my goodness, that's the first time I've heard that. That's such a brilliant
Yes,
way of explaining it.
So it's a lot of the time it's to do with our mind that actually we get physical symptoms that manifest. Obviously, there are some illnesses that are genuine physical health conditions, but a lot of the times, if you look back, I mean, I think if you look in India as well, a lot of the things is related to our body and our gut and our brain.
Absolutely.
So the connection between that.
The Veda and Ayurveda and
Yes.
even the Chinese medications and stuff,
Yes.
medicine life as well.
Yes.
Brilliant. Now, I also understand that you know a lot around the understanding. We had a doctor here, Dr. Ali,
Yes.
who was on a few weeks ago. I think it's about a month ago, and he also went further and had fallen so much in love with the Ayurveda. What we eat is what we become, and your food should be your medicine. This context. And he basically went into his PhD in that same field. Now, I also know that you are also known as the Happy Doctor.
Yes.
Or you're creating a new concept called the Happy Doctor. Would you like to just share a little bit about this, if you don't mind?
Yes, so exactly. I think like Dr. Ali, he's a psychiatrist, so very similar to what he's done. So I do believe we are what we eat. And as Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine and medicine thy food. Because whatever we are taking internally can affect our body. So either positively or negatively. And I've started a thing called the Happy Doctor's Kitchen. So that's my brand.
Yeah,
and because of growing up in a spice shop, from a young age, I knew the medicinal value of different spices. For example, turmeric, I've known that it heals wounds. So up till today, I'll use it on my kids. And even it's for memory problems. Yes, for inflammation, for memory problems, for any tummy problems as well, in ailments. Turmeric is very beneficial. There's 100 different uses of turmeric. But turmeric is one of those things I knew from a very young age, as well as garlic. You know, I used to have customers coming, and actually they would say that having a clove of garlic a day is so healthy. And if you have that, you don't get colds and flus. So I grew up with all these, the wisdom I learned from the spices, and that's why I've developed the Happy Doctor's Kitchen, where I'm trying to educate people that you are what you eat, and there's certain types of food, spices, and condiments that you can have that can actually improve your mood as well as improve your health and overall well-being.
So actually if I could just recall this so that everybody understands where I'm coming from, is that what Seshni is saying is she's now gone into a new field where it's re-educating old ancient philosophy about actually sharing with individuals, if they get the right food, that they can create the right ailments. It's a bit like Dadi's Nuske, which means basically grandma's secrets. So I speak to so many individuals, and it's all cultures, because I have offices around the world, and they all have this beautiful array of secret recipes.
Yes.
So this is where you're coming in, where you're creating a universal conversation around, look at the ingredients you're putting into your food. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. And it's about eating more healthy as well. We know there's certain foods that are rich in serotonin. So serotonin is a happy chemical. So when you exercise, you release the serotonin and people do feel happy afterwards. Or if you drink a cup of hot chocolate or have a piece of chocolate. Yeah, it boosts your mood. So there's certain foods as well, certain protein-rich foods, certain nuts, certain spices, certain pastas and tofu. So different vegetables as well, like kale and broccoli, spinach, avocado, and fish as well, like salmon. So all these are very, very protective for the brain, and they also boost your mood. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but whenever we get tired or we're going through difficulties in life, stresses, and arguments, and people tend to go towards more anger foods. So more foods that are unhealthy. So like fried foods.
The comfort foods.
Exactly, comfort foods and foods that are rich in sugar. So donuts and cakes and chocolates, crisp and cool drink, and also all the fatty foods like the fried pastries. And so these are the foods that actually initially it might make you feel better, but later on the health complications result from that. It doesn't actually help you in any way. It actually just helps temporarily.
So there's a temporal kind of like release in essence.
Exactly.
That's such a beautiful message to share. So actually, is there something within our psychology in some way and obviously this is your platform, so I'm sharing with yourself and asking you to share it, but when you get that edge of disparity, that you actually edge towards these donuts and sweets and fatty stuff anyway, and then it's just a perpetual downward spiral, isn't it?
Yes, no, there is in our psychology and also in the brain. So there's certain triggers in the brain. When you have one donut, you want to have another donut. Or if you have one sweet, you want to have another sweet, We've all had that. We want to have one biscuit and we have another one. So there's chemicals released in our brain, and there's a psychology as well, where we become emotional eaters and we think, oh, this is going to help me. But to be honest, it's about getting more self-aware with yourself and also then choosing. So what I've done is I saw people that were quite unhappy and depressed, and I wanted to find another way, apart from giving them medication and treating them holistically with psychology and social interventions. I tried to look at their diet and obviously sleep as well, and drinking lots of water. So in terms of the diet, I was looking at how can they improve their diet to actually improve their mood and improve their overall health and well-being. And what I noticed is when they incorporated the foods from the happy food group, that they were a lot happier. And I myself, I think I'm one of the happiest people on the planet. I mean, I will
second that.
Yes, I mean, there's negative events that occur, like now, obviously we're going through a health crisis with the coronavirus worldwide, but it's about raising the vibration and raising consciousness and actually being positive about things.
Yeah.
So my 5 tips for happiness. So there's another brand which I'm working on, which is Rich.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
so let's move into the legacy, because I think there's something specific that you want to leave on the planet. So just before I move into Rich, I just want to synopsize a little bit, yeah?
Yeah.
So one of the key things that I'm understanding is that, if a person can have the education around why they eat things and what they're eating specifically and the effect it has on their body, I mean, I believe that should be a part of school curriculum, right?
Definitely. I think children should learn it. I see with my kids, they do learn about nutrition and food tech. So they are learning about the healthy food groups. But I think what we're being influenced by is by the fast pace of life, parents not having enough. Yes, convenience foods. That's a word. So people grabbing, takeaways and things because it's convenient and because maybe parents are not able to cook healthy meals. So I think what it goes down to is, I don't know, Nelson Mandela, another one of his, I've got it in my one book, Pandora's Box Unleashed. He says that he loves the smell, in one of his quotes, I don't know it fully, but he says he loves the smells of food cooking in pots and also sitting around with children and reading to them stories.
Wow.
And I think that's what we need to go back to. So in that book, I spoke about social media and its addictive effects, the good and bad effects of social media. And that's why I put that quote of Nelson Mandela, and that's what I try to do in my home. As much as we attached to our gadget, we need to go back to spending time with children, cooking food and having those smells in our homes, and mindful eating. So
yeah, this is so beautiful, and obviously the conversation, the stories and the rhyme and the rhythm of how things are, this is so beautifully heard. We've still got plenty of time, so about another 6 minutes, but before I go on into your legacy moment, but just want to touch something. The other day I was going through some principles where we evolved in elements of from raw to food which are being cooked, whether it's by error or whether it's by design. There is the principle which you just said about the communication between head and heart and stomach, for example. That I was watching a program called I'll let you know exactly in a moment, but it was basically, it showed very clearly that the more we cook our food, the less we eat. And the more we watch our food being cooked or go and buy it, the more we eat. So have you found a correlation between the smells and the time and the preparation in actual quantity eaten? So the philosophy, what I'm trying to say is that they were saying, if you want to eat a whole apple pie, go and eat the whole apple pie, as long as you have made the applesauce, prepared it and made the pastry and put it together and cooked it. You'll find that after you've done all that, you only want one piece.
Yes. I think there's definitely a correlation with that, and it does make sense, because if you buy a takeout, if you buy pizza or Indian takeaway, you end up eating quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yes, it does happen. But if you are actually preparing the meal,
the dough,
yes, and
let's say a
taking
pizza,
that time, using all the ingredients, savoring the smells, mindfully cooking.
half filling yourself, right?
Exactly, you do end up eating less. So I
Right.
think there's definitely a correlation with
That's
that.
wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to move into, because we have got 3 minutes left. So, I told
I
you,
can't
Seshni,
believe it's
it
gone
goes
so quick.
It goes so
I could
wonderfully
talk
fast.
for hours with you about
Oh,
this. It's
bless
been
you.
so fantastic being on the show.
It's been our pleasure.
Thanks.
Seriously has. So one of the key things we talk about at the end of most of our interviews is I love our guests on the Empower Hour show to leave the legacy moment. So what is it specifically that you'd like to leave people with on this planet? And you mentioned your acronym.
Yes, so I'm a happiness psychiatrist, and what I'm working on is RICH. The acronym is for Realizing I Create Happiness.
Just repeat that. So RICH is R for realize, I as an I,
Yeah.
and then create, which is the C, and happiness. That's beautiful within itself. Well done. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you. And I think it stems from the fact that a lot of the time, people listening might be able to relate. We always hand the key of our happiness to someone else.
Wow.
So a relationship, or we're going to get a better car, a better house, a better job, we're going to be slimmer, or we're handing that key to someone else. But I think what I want to show people is that we actually create happiness ourselves, and we need to take that key back for ourselves. So it's about being self-aware, and I think 5 top tips. One is being happy now. So being happy in every moment. So Eckhart Tolle's book, Power of Now, is a definite read. I don't know if you've read it.
Eckhart Tolle, yes, that's right. Yes, absolutely. The Power of Now.
Yes, so it's about being happy now, using the tools that he's given in Power of Now. Please do read that book. It's life-changing. I recommend it for all my patients,
God bless.
family and friends, and I buy copies and I give out because I do believe in it. And then the second thing is about having a positive mindset. So you know that whatever we think, we become. And the more positive we think, the more positively our life will be affected. And like you were saying, when people, if they change their eating habits and the way they're thinking, then they'll be a lot happier. So it's very similar like CBT. So cognitive behavioral therapy is what is a mainstay of therapy that people use for psychological problems. So it's about changing our mindset. So having a positive mindset. The other thing is about mindfulness, so practicing mindfulness. I think mindfulness is key, and meditation. So I think those are the top 3. The next 2 for happiness, I know since I've started meditating, transcendental meditation, it's been life-changing and it's been blissful for me. That so much so that I will not go through a day without doing my meditation. And I do encourage the younger generation to do it. The other 2 we've spoken about already is exercise and healthy eating.
Can I have to pause on that one? Do you know, honestly, you have been a tremendous inspiration for us to be here on the show. I apologize for wanting to continue. I think I could have you back for another show, and if there's enough people coming through. This has been the Empower Hour, your 48th episode with Dr. Seshni Moodliar. See you next week.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.